All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're tackling a question that's at the heart of, well, every single business. Where does the money come from? We're going to break it all down using Chapter 2 of this corporate finance text as our guide. So let's dive right in.
Think about it. Every single business, from the corner coffee shop to a massive tech company, needs money to survive and grow. We call it capital in the finance world. But where does that capital actually come from? The answer to that question is pretty much the foundation of everything that business will ever do.
And that's where we step into the world of corporate finance. It might sound complicated, but honestly, it boils down to two huge decisions. First, how do you get the money? And second, once you have it, how do you use it wisely to grow? Today, we're going to laser focus on that first part, which is all about raising the cash in the first place.
Okay, so let's imagine a company. It's got a great idea, maybe a groundbreaking new product, but it needs a ton of cash to make it happen. It finds itself standing at a crossroads with two very different paths it can take to get the funding it needs.
And here they are, those two paths laid out for us: owned capital and borrowed capital. So what does that mean? Well, to put it simply, a company can either sell a piece of itself to investors or it can borrow the money. Let's dig into that first option, the path of ownership.
Yep, this path is all about ownership. And the slice of the pie analogy is perfect, really. You're basically saying, hey, give me some cash now, and in return, you'll own a piece of this company and get a share of the profits later on.
So, officially, this is what we call owned capital. It's the money a company gets by selling those ownership stakes. The folks who buy in, they become shareholders. Yep, actual part owners. And here's the kicker. This is permanent capital. The company doesn't have to pay it back, ever. It becomes part of the very fabric of the business.
Now this is where it gets really interesting, because not all slices of the pie are the same. A company can offer a couple of different flavors. On one hand, you've got equity shares. These are for the investors who want to be real owners, who want a say in how things are run. They get voting rights. But it's also riskier. Their payout totally depends on how well the company does. Then you've got preference shares. These are for the more cautious crowd. They get a fixed, steady payout, but they don't get a vote. So it's a classic trade-off. Do you want control and risk, or safety and predictability?
Okay, but wait a minute. Every time a company sells a new slice of pie, the original owner's slice gets a little bit smaller, right? Their ownership gets diluted. So what happens when a profitable company needs cash but, doesn't really want to give away any more control? Is there another option?
You bet there is. It's called retained earnings. It's actually a pretty simple idea. Instead of giving all the profits back to the owners as dividends, the company just keeps some of it. It reinvests that money right back into the business. They sometimes call it plowing back the profit. It's like using your own success to fund your future growth. And it's a super powerful way to get cash without selling off more of the company.
Okay, so that's the path of ownership. Now let's pivot and look at that other road at the crossroads. This one builds a completely different kind of financial reality for a company. We're talking about the path of borrowing.
So, unlike owned capital, borrowed capital isn't permanent. It's a loan, plain and simple. And loans have rules. It has to be paid back. And it has to be paid back with interest. And here's the really crucial part. You have to pay that interest no matter what. Profit, loss, doesn't matter. That payment is due. It's a fixed obligation.
And a company has a lot of places it can go to borrow money. You've got your standard bank loans, you've got bonds. But for big companies looking for long-term cash, one of the most important tools in their kit is something called a debenture. So what on earth is a debenture? Well, the best way to think of it is like a very formal IOU from the company. Someone gives the company money, and the company gives them this debenture. That person is now a creditor, not an owner. They're basically a lender. They're guaranteed to get their money back with interest, for sure. But they get zero say in how the company is run. Absolutely none.
Okay, so we've got the path of ownership, selling slices of the pie, and we've got the path of borrowing, taking on debt. But does a company have to pick just one lane and stick to it? Well, as you've probably guessed, the answer is a big no.
The truth is, pretty much every company out there uses a strategic mix of both. A little bit of ownership, a little bit of debt. And this special recipe, this specific combination of the two, has a name. It's called the capital structure. And getting this mix right is a huge deal. A young, risky startup might rely almost entirely on selling ownership, while a big, stable, predictable company can often use debt to its advantage.
And this really gets to the core of it all, the huge difference between being an owner versus just being a lender. A shareholder, they're an owner. Their reward, the dividend, goes up and down with the company's fortunes.
A debenture holder, they're a creditor. Their reward is a fixed interest payment, period. The company could be having its best year ever or its worst, that interest payment stays the same. So yeah, being a shareholder is a high-risk, high-reward proposition. Being a creditor, much, much safer. I love this quote from Henry Ford. It just perfectly sums up the whole point of corporate finance, doesn't it? Money is an arm or leg, use it or lose it. It doesn't matter where the capital comes from, owned or borrowed, it's a tool. It's meant to be used, to be put to work building things and creating value. Letting it just sit there is like, well, losing a limb.
So, what's the big takeaway from all this? Well, it really comes down to a fundamental trade-off. On the one hand, selling ownership gets you cash without a strict deadline to pay it back, but it means you're sharing future profits and giving up some control. On the other hand, borrowing lets the original owners keep full control, but it saddles the company with a rigid, non-negotiable obligation to pay that money back.
And that leaves us with one final question to chew on. For any business out there, what's truly the bigger risk? Is it giving up some control to new owners who might just have their own vision for the company? Or is it taking on the crushing weight of debt, an obligation that has to be met no matter what happens? Control versus obligation. It's a tough one to think about.